everything changed in a matter of seconds. In the NFL, we like to think that front offices have it all figured out. You know, that these billionaire owners and millionaire general managers have these bulletproof, meticulous plans for success. But the terrifying truth, the reality of this league, is that an entire franchise's foundation can completely vanish in a single violent hit. Right now, for the Indianapolis Colts, an agonizing, suffocating reality has set in. Their most vital, expensive investments are suddenly and tragically unable to take the field. We are watching in real time how rapidly an entire NFL organization can be brought to its absolute knees when their cornerstone players are forced to the sideline.
Before we get into the sheer scale of this disaster, welcome to NFL Nexus. We dive deep into the real stories shaping the league, so please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment on what you thought about this situation. And if you really want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member. We appreciate every single one of you. Okay, let's talk about the money. $60 million. I want you to really process that number. That is the massive, franchise-altering financial weight of the contract handed to cornerback Charvarius Ward. Now, this wasn't just a routine signing. This was supposed to be the foundational piece of the Indianapolis Colts' entire defensive rebuild. This was an investment designed to buy a lockdown, undeniable franchise cornerstone, a guy who shuts down half the field.
And then you look at the other side of the ball. Add to that the staggering $88 million two-year deal recently handed to quarterback Daniel Jones. Why? To supposedly solve their catastrophic offensive woes. You put those two together, and you are looking at nearly $150 million invested in just two players. It is placing an immense, almost unbearable financial burden on a franchise that is currently buckling under the sheer weight of these high-stakes gambles. Because listen, when a team commits this kind of astronomical capital, you expect a deep playoff contender. You expect dominance. You do not expect absolute, unmitigated chaos. Which brings us to exactly what we are breaking down today. Section 4, the Colts crisis. Millions, tragedy, and quarterback chaos. Now, we need to lower the temperature for a second here. Because to truly understand the depth of this crisis, we have to look past the money and look at the deeply, deeply human element. 10 games missed, 3 separate concussions, and 1 heartbreaking, unimaginable loss. This is the tragic 2025 storyline of Charvarius Ward. For him, this past year wasn't about securing his legacy on the gridiron. It wasn't about the playoffs or the Pro Bowl. Football became entirely secondary to sheer survival and profound, heavy grief. The financial reality of Ward's contract is frankly daunting for the front office. Let's really break down every single dollar here, because the details are where this gets terrifying for the Colts' salary cap. Out of the $60 million total value, $35 million is fully guaranteed. That includes a massive $20 million signing bonus that was handed over the very second he put pen to paper. The cash is already gone. But the most concerning part for the Colts moving forward, that is the 2026 vested salary. $12.9 million, fully guaranteed. That specifically ties their salary cap to a player who is currently facing severe, career-threatening medical uncertainty. They paid top of the market to buy a lockdown corner, but right now, they are essentially paying for a permanent spot on injured reserve. And the medical reality here is brutal. Post-concussion syndrome doesn't negotiate, and it absolutely does not reset to zero between hits. The damage compounds. Let's trace this horrific timeline. In week 1, he suffered his first concussion. He battled. He fought his way back, only to suffer a second one during pre-game warm-ups before the Week 6 game against the Cardinals. And this wasn't just a minor bump. It was the result of a violently severe collision with tight end Drew Ogletree. Again, Ward recovered. Again, he returned to the field. And then, Week 14, he suffered a third concussion that ended his regular season entirely. 3 traumatic brain injuries in a matter of just a few months. It perfectly and tragically illustrates the compounding nature of neurological damage in the sport. But the medical trauma on the field was completely eclipsed by an entirely different kind of pain off of it. In October 2024, Ward suffered the unimaginable, the heartbreaking death of his 2-year-old daughter, Amani Joy. He has stated publicly, in incredibly raw terms, that he hasn't felt happiness since. We have to step back and realize this is a profound, life-altering human tragedy. The immense weight of this grief, when you compound it with the severe physical toll of his concussions, it caused Ward to seriously consider immediate retirement. And who could blame him? Football simply doesn't matter. It literally ceases to mean anything when compared to a reality where a father has to bury his child. The ripple effects of his absence on the field, however, have been devastating to the team's architecture. Just look at the contrast. In 2023, Ward was a second-team All-Pro. He led the entire NFL with 23 passes defensed during an elite Super Bowl run with the 49ers. He was a master of boundary coverage. Now, contrast that with his 2025 reality in Indianapolis. Just 7 games played, only 17 solo tackles, a mere 7 passes defensed. This wasn't just losing a guy in the depth chart. This completely and utterly shattered defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo's entire defensive scheme. The Colts spent incredibly heavily to lock down the boundary, relying on Ward on an island. Instead, Anarumo spent the entire year frantically scrambling, adjusting, and just bleeding yardage week after week. But while the defense desperately attempts to manage that devastating loss, if you look over at the offense, they're experiencing a systematic breakdown of their own. A complete implosion centered entirely around the quarterback room. We have to talk about the absolute downward spiral of Anthony Richardson Sr. The former 4th overall pick has seen his standing with this franchise completely unravel. First, in a massive blow to his confidence, he flat out lost the starting job to Daniel Jones. Then, in a truly bizarre, almost unbelievable turn of events, he suffered a freak pregame orbital fracture. That effectively ended his campaign before he could even fight for his job back. The front office then made it official. They declined his 5th-year option, which leaves him right now as an impending, unrestricted free agent with one foot completely out the door, actively placed on the trade block. It is a staggering fall from grace for a guy who was supposed to be the future. So, with Richardson sidelined and Daniel Jones recovering, who did the team turn to? Riley Leonard. And we need to spend some serious time dissecting every single microstat of his 5-game rookie stint, because the details here tell the whole story. Especially leading up to his Week 14 knee injury and that lone, highly scrutinized start against the Texans. Leonard stepped up during a critical stretch, and the numbers are a mixed bag. He completed 39 of 67 passes. That's just over a 58% completion rate. He threw for 415 passing yards. He proved to be this gritty, capable backup who can absolutely keep the chains moving and utilizes mobility, adding 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground. However, you cannot ignore the turnovers. He threw 2 touchdowns but 3 interceptions. Couple that with 2 fumbles, it shows he still has some glaring rookie decision-making flaws that he desperately needs to iron out if he wants to survive in this league. But to his credit, Leonard isn't just resting on his laurels. He is actively, step-by-step, trying to master head coach Shane Steichen's incredibly complex offense. He is doing everything in his power to solidify his role for 2026. Step 1 as a rookie was simple. Keep your mouth shut and just observe. Be a sponge. Step 2 was proving his relentless, undeniable work ethic to the veterans in that locker room. Show them he belongs. Now, in year 2, he is focusing on step 3, understanding the deep why of the playbook. Not just knowing the routes, but knowing exactly why Steichen calls specific concepts against specific defensive coverages. And that builds directly into step 4, which Steichen actually specifically praised him for during OTAs, developing accelerated visual processing, speeding up his reads so the NFL game actually slows down for him. And perhaps the most impressive thing about Riley Leonard is his mindset. Listen to this quote. "I'm not taking the approach of, I'm the guy. I'm filling in right now for the place of Daniel Jones." That right there, that is calculated, brilliant self-awareness. Leonard knows he isn't the $88 million man. He knows the politics of the NFL. By fully embracing the QB2 role and publicly deferring to Jones while he recovers, Leonard is quietly cementing his status over Anthony Richardson. He is maneuvering perfectly to secure his roster spot without making waves. But what happens if Daniel Jones simply isn't healthy? What happens if Leonard regresses in camp and Richardson is officially traded away? Enter General Manager Chris Ballard's sudden, dramatic, and highly controversial alternative, the 2026 NFL Supplemental Draft wildcard. This brings us to the absolutely chaotic collegiate journey of Brendan Sorsby, a player surrounded by flashing red flags, but also harboring massive, undeniable potential. His story started with a massive freshman sports gambling controversy at Indiana that derailed his early career. From there, he transferred to Cincinnati, where he played 24 games and truly, finally broke out on the national stage. Fast forward to today, and he is currently attempting to play the 2026 season for Texas Tech. But here is the massive catch. If he faces a looming eligibility denial by the NCAA, he will be forced straight into the NFL supplemental draft. And right now, league insiders are pointing directly at the desperate Indianapolis Colts as a prime landing spot. And when you look at the tape, you see exactly why Chris Ballard is interested. During those 24 games at Cincinnati, Sorsby's dual-threat production was nothing short of staggering. He posted a massive volume of 5,613 passing yards alongside 1,077 rushing yards. This isn't just a game manager, folks. This is a highly explosive, dynamic offensive weapon capable of completely taking over football games with both his arm and his legs. Let's dive incredibly deep into these granular Cincinnati production metrics, because this is what NFL scouts are drooling over. He threw an astounding 45 passing touchdowns against only 12 interceptions. That ratio is phenomenal. While doing that, he also punched in 18 rushing touchdowns. But crucially, and this is the stat that matters most to a guy like Shane Steichen, his completion rate jumped to 62.9%. That is a nearly 6-point accuracy jump from his chaotic days at Indiana. It highlights his refined mechanics. It highlights his improved processing speed. It proves on paper that he can be an absolute difference maker under center if given the chance. So let's map out this entire, completely chaotic quarterback depth chart for Indianapolis. It is a mess of epic proportions. At number 1, you have Daniel Jones and his massive $88 million investment. At number 2, you have Riley Leonard desperately trying to develop Steichen's system. At 3, you have the exiled Anthony Richardson Sr. just waiting on the trade block. At 4, you have Seth Hennigan, the absolute star out of Memphis whose incredible collegiate stats earned him a spot waiting in the wings on a futures contract. And hovering above all of this, the ultimate wild card in Brendan Sorsby. 5 quarterbacks, countless millions of dollars tied up, and absolutely zero certainty for a franchise that needs answers yesterday. But as this offense desperately, frantically searches for stability, we have to transition back to the human element. Because the Colts' greatest uncertainty, their most terrifying reality, remains on the defensive boundary. For all the offensive depth charts, for all the millions of contract numbers, the darkest question hovering over the city of Indianapolis is simply this: what happens after the 4th concussion? Charvarius Ward is attempting a comeback, but his brain has already absorbed repeated, documented trauma. If he takes one more hit in 2026, the conversation immediately shifts from a triumphant football return to a devastating, career-ending medical tragedy. So I ask you this: are we watching the early stages of a beautiful, resilient comeback story in Indianapolis? Or are we simply witnessing a highly paid tragedy waiting to happen? It is a ticking time bomb of unmanageable expectations, compounded physical trauma, and sheer front office desperation. It leaves us wondering just how much a player and franchise can truly risk before absolutely everything shatters. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Is this going to work out, or is it a disaster? Make sure to subscribe to NFL Nexus, drop a like, and I'll see you in the next one.